This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
That one hammered down the line. Did he keep it fair? He did into the second deck. Lead-off homer for Nootbaar. Happy Mother's Day. It's 1-0 Cardinals. Swing and a shot right center field. That's down for a base hit. Here comes Herrera. He's going to score. Victor Scott adds to the lead. To left. Well hit. Donovan retreating. Still going. Leaps up and he makes a tumbling catch on the warning track. Brandon Donovan with a great grab.
Well, that's another good game on all sides. We had a really good approach offensively. Defense, man, Vic makes a nice diving play. Donnie going up against the wall. And then the pitching continues to be really, really good. So all sides of it right now are clicking, and it's fun to watch.
The Cardinals have won 8 games in a row. They are in second place in the division, just 1 game back of the Chicago Cubs. Alex, they're playing good ball. The rotation looks good. The bullpen, the roles are starting to be finalized. You see this offense contributing. Ivan Herrera, nice boost to that lineup back. Wilson Contreras has been one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball for the last 2.5 weeks now. They look like a really good baseball club. How much are you buying it? 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. Alex, at this point in the season last year, the Cardinals were 17-24. The year before that, 16-25. Today, you are 22-19, 3 games above 500. When was the first time last year that you were 3 games above 500? 77 games into the season. Took a while to be able to dig yourself out of that hole that you had last season early on. They never got above 3 games above 500 in 2023. Not once. Not a single time did they get to where they are today in the entirety of the 2023 season. So, Alex, it is, by record, very different from what we have seen over the past couple of seasons. But I think for a lot of fans, this team has to answer for the ghost of Cardinals' last 2 seasons. That's where they're at, is they have to live with what has taken place over the last 2 years, and they have to be that much better because of it for people to really be willing to buy in. And then you add in what was the backdrop to the season where they didn't add much of anything to this roster. Yeah, it's going to take a while, I think, for people to believe in what they're watching. But for you, does it feel different? Are you ready to buy in? Where are you at on this Cardinals team?
It does feel different. Man, that open, BK, I don't know about you, but it felt like I wanted to grab the conductor hat or something, Inspector Gadget, my arm's just reaching out over there. Look, it feels different. I mean, it really does. And I mean, this is coming from a guy who has been the biggest Cardinals pessimist for the last few years. But I think that's why I'm starting to have a shift in heart with this team, because everything about their group doesn't feel like what the last few years were. I mean, look, to not be hypocritical, we talked about the Blues from one season to the other, and we said, look, the first thing you need to do is stop losing to bad teams. Stop losing to below 500 teams. The Cardinals, you need to do the same thing. You were getting beat by the White Sox last year. You were losing to the Pirates. You were losing to the Reds. So it was hard for me to believe in a team that couldn't beat the worst teams in baseball. Well, now they're not beating them. They're just beating the heck out of them. I mean, Eric Fetty's getting a complete game shutout against the Washington Nationals. You're putting 10 runs up on them in one game. That, to me, is job number 1. You're a team that is trying to make an improvement from the last couple of years. Well, kudos to you, because you are making the worst teams look like the worst teams in Major League Baseball. Now, for me to really start to look at this team and be like, okay, I said before last week when I was with you guys, I said I want to see what they do on the road. That's a hell of a start to win the first 3 games on the road. But I'll play the devil's advocate here.
Sure.
That's a really bad team. You made them look bad.
I don't think the Nationals are a really bad team. I think you made them look really bad.
I think if Eric Fetty gets a complete game shutout, you're a pretty bad team.
I don't know, man. Fetty was just really good. I think they have a bad approach. But going into that weekend, the Nationals were basically a reflection of what you thought the Cardinals were going to be coming into the season. A lot of really young talent that needs to be groomed, and they're finding their way at the Major League level. That's not the White Sox. That's not the Marlins. That's not the Pirates. That's not the Rockies. What you went up against over the weekend was not a tanking roster. That's just a kind of middle-of-the-pack type of a roster.
Yeah,
I thought it was a peer team. What we saw over the weekend, dude, that is not your peer.
No.
You are not the Washington Nationals. You're not in the same class as them. Not right now, at least. So I will be curious. I'm with you, Alex, what this looks like going into Philly. Because the Cardinals have had some road struggles this year. Now, I do think it's worth noting it was basically 2 series, and it was mostly bullpen implosions. And it was really 2 guys. For the most part, it was just Ryan Fernandez was terrible this season, and then Chris Roycroft had a couple of blow-up innings for you. But other than that, you've been mostly okay on the road. You mentioned how the Cardinals are winning these games. It's not just that they're winning close ones the way that they did for most of last year. They are blowing these teams out, man. The Cardinals have 10 wins already this season by at least 5 runs. They had 1 win at this point in the season last year by 5 or more runs. 1. The year before that, at this point in the season, 6 such wins. You have 10 of them, so more than the last 2 years combined through the first quarter of the season. So you're winning in different ways. You're winning with really high-level defense. By any metric you look at, top 5 defense in Major League Baseball. Your starting pitching has really come around since that Boston Red Sox series. The offense has been, there have been times where it doesn't look great, but for the most part this season, you're roughly a top 10 offense in baseball. And your bullpen, it seems like the roles are starting to get handed out. This is what we were hoping to see from the Cardinals. So we get this from the 636. I love what we're watching right now with the Cardinals. It's fun, it's exciting, and it gives me a little bit of hope. But also, I've been hurt by this team before, and I don't know if I'm ready to trust again. But hey, at least it's fun right now. Another one says, come back to Busch by going 4-2 over the next 6 games, and at that point, I'll be ready to buy back in.
And that's where I'm at. Right now, you're checking all of these boxes off on my list. You've been great at home. Your young players are consistent for you. Your pitching has been really, really good. You're winning on the road now. And before, we were wondering, was this just a couple of bad bullpen arms? Now it's proving to be the case. If you can go out there and continue this success, now I don't expect you to go sweep the Phillies, but can you take 2 or 3? Can you take 2 or 3 against the Phillies? Can you take 2 or 3 against the Royals? Because those 2 teams are viewed by a lot as teams that can go deep into the playoffs.
Or at least make the playoffs. They're legit playoff rosters.
Great lineups, great pitching staffs that you're going to be going up against, and you're doing all of this on the road. If you can go out there and continue that, dude, there's nothing else for me to argue with this team. And that's going to be the point where I look at this as a different lens. I'm not going to look at this as a rebuilding team. I'm going to look at this as a team that the Blues were this past year, where it's like, hey, you wanted to transition, you wanted to go quick. Remember, the front office for the Blues believed they were a playoff team. Now, you start to wonder if the Cardinals are going to believe that this is a playoff team.
Yeah, and they might be. They're at least playing that way right now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL is also where you can go to get involved. That's where the Graveyard Chat is off and running today. If you'd like to get involved over there, feel free to do so. We'll certainly have plenty of reaction throughout the day today. We'll be talking about the Cardinals putting John Mozeliak into a really difficult position as we get further along into the season. Katie Woo will join the show coming up in the 12 o'clock hour as well. Coming up in 15 minutes, there is one theme that we're starting to see in the NHL in these playoffs. We'll talk about that, how it applies to the Blues offseason in 15 minutes or so. But coming up next, the Cardinals are playing better, and yet Jordan Walker has never looked worse at the plate, at least when it comes to his numbers overall. How do you square those 2 facts, and what does it mean for what this season was supposed to be all about? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I'm putting a lot more emphasis on what I want to do in there. Things that, I got away from that I was doing at the beginning of the season. And I think that Brownie and BA and, even JJ's in there helping me out. Really just, kind of putting emphasis on the things that I got away from and trying to get back to it. So we're doing a lot of different things, and, day by day, we're trying to get back to where I was.
That was Jordan Walker a little while ago talking about what he's doing to adjust at the major league level. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. T-Bone out today. He'll be back in tomorrow with us here on the show. Alex, there are 165 qualified hitters this year. They just have enough plate appearances right now to qualify for the batting title. Among those 165 major league players that are qualified, Jordan Walker is 160th in OPS+. He's been one of the 5 least productive hitters in Major League Baseball so far this season. He's batting 185. He's getting on base just 26% of the time, and he has almost no pop to speak of on the season. He's striking out 31% of the time, which is really Nolan Gorman-esque in terms of the strikeout rate for him. It's been really bad, and he's been a net negative on the field thus far, despite, I think, vastly improved defense in right field. He's been a net positive in the outfield. His bat is just not living up to any of the expectations thus far. And so this is going to get the Cardinals into a tricky situation. They didn't anticipate, at least I should clarify, I didn't anticipate them being at this point in the standings where we're at right now. And so it makes decisions like this a little more difficult than otherwise you would have expected. There's going to come a point in time, probably at the end of this road trip, where you have to make a decision. Are we trying to win the most games right now? Or are we trying to develop Jordan Walker and to give him the runway that we had promised right now? Because they will be potentially at odds if he doesn't get this thing fixed over the course of this road trip. You've got 6 games, 3 in Philly, 3 in Kansas City. Alex, if you go like 4-2 in those 6 games, you're playing good baseball, you continue your winning ways, you're well above 500, and you're coming back home to face off against the Detroit Tigers on that following Monday. But Jordan Walker continues to sink, and the batting average is hovering around 175. The strikeout rate is still high. You're not seeing the adjustments implemented. Do you stick with him? Do you consider, hey, we saw it over the weekend, Donnie can play a hell of a right field if you need him to. Go to right field, Donnie. Let's go ahead and call up Sajaci. He'll take that right-handed spot in the lineup, batting 7th or so in the order. He'll be our everyday second baseman for right now. Do you consider making that switch, or do you stick with Jordan Walker because that's what the season was supposed to be about?
I absolutely do not make that switch. I don't even think about it. I don't even consider it. You know what Jordan Walker has done in his last 15 games? He's batting 138 with a 172 slug. Do you know what the Cardinals' offense has done in the last 15 games?
Been good.
They've scored the 4th most runs in Major League Baseball. They've had the 8th most doubles. They're top 10 in home run, top 10 in batting average, and slug percentage, and OPS. So, no, I'm not making the change because one bad apple shouldn't ruin the batting order. You're doing well right now. And if we're sending Jordan Walker down to bring up Thomas Sajaci, well, then you need to say it what it is. You're done with Jordan Walker. You don't believe that Jordan Walker is going to be the everyday player that you hope he's going to be. Because if you're sending him back down and telling him, hey, we need you to go work on this stuff, well, then plan on him not being the same player because you lost him for a bit last year, and now look at where he's at. You need to stick with this from start to finish. And you can still walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. You can still win baseball games and develop Jordan Walker. Just because he's in the batting order and the 7 spot right now is basically an offer for you, that's great. But you've got Herrera now, you've got Nootbaar, you've got Donovan, you've got Wynn, you've got Scott. You've got a lot of other pieces that can cover up the warts of Jordan Walker and allow the kid to figure it out. And guess what? At the end of the season, you're still probably, if this team is consistent, going to be competing for a playoff spot. And you can look at Jordan Walker and say, dude, we gave you the runway. I'm sorry, man. It's just not in the cards for you. Now let's find a different path. There is no way in hell I'm sending him back down to the minors.
I'm not either. I'm sticking with him. I said this on Friday. I continue to believe it today. I I would stick with this guy at least for as long as I possibly can. You look back last year, Alex, and Jackson Chourio is a guy that we talked a lot about. He was struggling early on for the Milwaukee Brewers, and we compared it to the way that the Cardinals at that point had handled the Jordan Walker experience. It was like, man, it's no contest. They just gave him more runway. Here's what Jackson Chourio did through his first 37 games last year, okay? He was batting .207. He had a .575 OPS. He had 36 strikeouts in his first 121 plate appearances. He was basically at this point what Jordan Walker has been so far for you. Jackson Chourio, the rest of the way, was one of the Brewers' best hitters. He got off to a really sluggish start, and then everything took off from there, and he finished the season with a .790 OPS, batting .275, and that's for the season, including how horrible he was to start things out. The rest of the way, after what I just told you, here's what Jackson Chourio did. .295 average, .350 on base, .855 OPS. That's like a 25% above league average hitter. I don't know if Jordan Walker has that in him. Jackson Chourio last year was a rookie, and he made the adjustments on the fly, and it took him like 40 games to get there. For Jordan Walker, it might take longer. This is year 3, really, of going this up and down experience with Walker. It may just never click. That's very much in play. He's also still very young, and I know people get sick of hearing it, but it's the truth, man. It's really hard to adjust to the major league level, especially when you're 22, 23 years old. So for me, I understand the calls to get him out of the lineup. I don't even necessarily blame them if they do it, but this season is about finding out what you have in that dude. That's the guy.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with him.
This is the ideal spot you want a guy like Jordan Walker to be in.
Agreed.
To where he is protected by 5 or 6 other guys who are hitting, to where he is not the person that you look at and you say, you need to be the best hitter on this team. Man, you've got 5 other guys that fall into that category right now. Frankly, Victor Scott is viewed as a better hitter than Jordan Walker. Dude, this is the perfect opportunity for him to just lay in the weeds and continue to work on the side with John Jay. We talked about this last week. Nobody really even realizes that he's probably been in the lineup and then off the lineup every other day, because they've been working with him in the cages. He's working with Brant Brown. He's working with John Jay, as you heard him mention. This is it. This is where you want him to develop. And at the end of this season, he is still hitting this. And you've given him 130-plus games to be an everyday outfielder. And this is him. Then you as a team can come to him and say, look, man, Thomas JC is hitting. We've got Alec Burleson. I understand we want you to be a major leaguer, but you're going to have to figure this out on your own timetable, because right now we have other guys that deserve to play. But for right now, your goal, priority number 1, the 17 press conferences you held, was finding the answers to Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. And right now you're finding them. Keep going.
Yeah, I know, I understand it is frustrating to watch because he's not producing right now. But I think you got to stick with him. And Alex, I think, to me, just to play devil's advocate for a minute and to play the other side of the boat, if they consider making this move, if they consider switching out him for JC and putting JC at second, putting Donovan in right field, I do think it helps you win more games right now. I think you are making yourself a better baseball team today if you had JC up and Walker down. And if you wanted to sell that, like, why would you do that right now? It is because how do you look the rest of the team, the rest of the guys in that locker room in the eye and say, we're trying to do our best to compete today, the way that they did when they brought Victor Scott up to the major league level, right? Or the way that they have when they've given Matthew Liberatore the opportunity in the rotation, and they said, you know what, Steven Matz, we're going to make you the guy that we thought Matthew Liberatore was going to be. You'll swing back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. He's adjusted well to that. Like, they have done all of the things thus far, for the most part, that you would do if you were really trying to win. The one thing that it took a little bit long on was Ryan Fernandez. We all agreed on that. We called them out for it, and they eventually sent him back down, even if it was probably like a week after what we personally would have done. With Walker, if you wanted to sell the exact same vision of, hey, we're trying to give runway, but ultimately this is about winning games at the major league level, you probably give him one more week. And then you say, all right, we got to make a decision. You're not producing right now. The stuff that we're working on in the cages, it's not getting fixed. But to go back to my personal standpoint on this, again, that was if you decide to do this, what would be the selling point? That's it.
Yeah.
My personal viewpoint on it, I don't think the stuff that is plaguing Jordan Walker at the major league level gets fixed in AAA.
Agreed.
I think if you're going to make that move, to me, it is more about, hey, Walker, you're going to become a player that is coming mostly off of the bench for us, a platoon bat, those kinds of things. You're sticking around our major league coaching staff. You're going to get the work here, and you're going to see major league pitching. You won't see sliders like this at the minor league level. You're not going to see guys that game plan for you the way that you will at the major league level if you go down to the minors. I don't think he gets fixed down there. I think the way that has to happen is here. For him to see major league pitching consistently and for him to be around the major league staff game planning consistently. Yeah. Nothing else I think is going to fix him.
Well, and I think you have to go off of the notes that you have on Jordan Walker from the last couple of years. When you sent him down, there has been a little bit of acclimating to it for Jordan Walker, and this is not an organization thing. It's a personal thing. And if you're the organization, you've told Jordan Walker at the beginning of the season, I would imagine, that you're going to be here. You're going to figure out, you're going to take your lumps at the major league level and you're going to adjust. And then you're going to switch the tune because the team's having competitive season that you didn't expect. Well, what does that say to Jordan Walker, who you're trying to develop? Hey, you're not good enough to be on our team and we're trying to win, so go figure it out and we'll call him back up. This is not an easy position to be in if you're the Cardinals.
No, it's hard.
But you're winning right now, and Jordan Walker is still struggling. When you start losing a lot of games because of Jordan Walker, then you can have the conversation.
I think what we've seen is that they're not going to win or lose based on Walker. And so that is really, at least not right now while everybody else is hitting well. When this becomes a concern potentially is when guys start to fall back a little bit. Eventually Mason Wynn is not going to hit like this. And that's not to say that he's going to become like a league average hitter or below, but eventually Mason Wynn is going to cool down. Eventually Victor Scott is going to cool down. Eventually Wilson Contreras is not going to be the hottest hitter on the face of the earth. These things will happen. Eventually Brendan Donovan's not going to be batting .320 for the season.
But that's when you find out what you're made of as a major league player. When other guys falter and you need to step up, can you do it?
And I think the answer right now for Walker is no. The reason I bring those things up is because right now Walker can just be a guy that's in the lineup. He can bat 8th, 7th, whatever, consistently for you, and it's not a big deal that he's struggling because everybody else is so damn hot that whatever. We've got one guy that's a black hole in the lineup, and we can make up for that. But when other guys start to struggle a little bit more than they are right now, it exposes those massive weaknesses within your lineup, right? That's when you start to see, uh-oh, guys are not carrying the lineup anymore. We need somebody else to be able to do so, and Walker's not capable of it right now. And that is when you really get that pressure to make the decision. And I'm going to be fascinated to see what this looks like, man. I'm really curious to see what the Cardinals decide to do there. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. Katie Wu joining us at 12 o'clock. We'll get to your questions in 15 minutes. But next, Alex has seen one theme for the second round of the playoffs thus far. What does it mean for the Blues and specifically for their offseason? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
Stanley Cup playoffs are on ESPN tonight. Hurricanes and Capitals. Pregame at 5:30, puck drop at 6. Your home for the NHL. 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
How sweep it was in D.C. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday afternoon, the Cardinals polished off a 3-game sweep of Washington, winning 6-1 at Nationals Park. Miles Michaelis worked 5+ innings, taking down Mackenzie Gore, while Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, and Lars Nootbaar homered. STL targets that 9th straight victory tonight. Visiting Philadelphia, Matthew Liberatore draws said start. Hockey, Matthew Tkachuk's Panthers even up their second-round series against Toronto. Dallas soars past Winnipeg 5-2. Caps Hurricanes plus Golden Knights Oilers will assume center stage later. UFL-wise, Battlehawks outslug Memphis 19-9. This Sports Center update has been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
There are certain themes to a playoff series that you can learn as things go along, and they can change as we go into that specific season. And Alex, sometimes we take too much of these. Sometimes it is exactly what you need it to be, and it can be something that tells you about where you should be as an organization in that offseason. With Alex and Bradford on BK. So for the Blues, as we watch what's taking place in the second round of the NHL's playoffs, you've seen something emerge as a theme for the teams that are winning these respective series. What is that theme to you, Alex?
The theme is their top guys are finishing. And that sounds like Captain Obvious statement. But, you know, typically in the playoffs, specifically in the second round, you really start to see the identity of winning teams take place. Last year, it was goaltending. Goaltending was just stealing the show. This season, I've said you could argue both sides of that coin because we've seen some great goaltending, but we've also seen Connor Hellebuck and Aiden Hill and Stuart Skinner. Or it's been defense, a lot of stingy games. Man, we have seen about like 4 or 5 goals a game right now in a lot of these second-round playoffs. But when I look at teams like Dallas, teams like Carolina, teams like Vegas, man, I am seeing their top guys finish on every opportunity that they're coming away with. And it's an element that I do think is very important. Like Mikko Rantanen right now. The Dallas Stars are up in that series and frankly going to win in 5, in my opinion, because nobody can stop Mikko Rantanen.
That guy's been on a mission.
Again, he's a superstar, so what do you expect? But he's a top guy that they go to, and when they put him on the ice, every single night you can expect him to come away with some type of scoring opportunity. The Toronto Maple Leafs, William Nylander has been the best player on that team so far in the playoffs. He and Mitch Marner, your top guys, finishing product. The Carolina Hurricanes, Andrei Svechnikov. Now, on the flip side of that, you know, look at what Jack Eichel's been doing with the Vegas Golden Knights. He's been kind of silent for them. So sometimes your top players do disappear, and that's how teams fall short. But watching the second round, the one thing, because you always grade it against, you know, what was your team lacking? Your team's lacking what Dallas has, what Carolina has, what Toronto has. When they need a goal, they put their top guys out there and they come through with it.
But what can you do to add those players? Because like I'm with you. William Nylander,
yeah,
great. Mikko Rantanen, great.
Yep.
Blue should definitely add one of those.
Yep.
Is there a Mikko Rantanen and William Nylander tree that I can pull from and be like, all right, let's go get these guys?
Well,
Suddenly the Blues
trade.
are a playoff contender or Stanley Cup contender.
I mean, no. Your options are draft, which we're past that now, ladies and gentlemen, and now it's get aggressive and trade. Like you look at Rantanen, they were aggressive and they made that trade. You look at the Florida Panthers, Sam Bennett, who I know everybody's talking about right now. They were aggressive a few years ago and they made the trade for him. Like when you go out there and you can find guys that can be that finishing product for you, you have to be aggressive with it. Vegas, their top goal scorer right now, who hasn't been as great as we thought, but Mark Stone. How'd they get him? They were aggressive in the trade. Like that to me is what you're seeing. A lot of these teams, of course, they have the success with the guys that they draft. They have the success that the players that they pick 4th or 5th overall. But teams that are aggressive, they're the ones that seem to always come out on top. And that's the one thing that we've talked about with the Blues. When you look at it, at the end of this postseason, if Dallas is the one hoisting the Stanley Cup, is every team going to be sitting there going, you know what? Maybe sometimes it's worth getting aggressive, just like we were asking about the Florida Panthers when they went out there and got Matthew Tkachuk.
Just got to do it for the right dude. Yep. If you do it for the right dude, it can be worth it for you. If you do it for the wrong guy, well, what ends up happening is you are where the LA Kings were when they traded what they thought was a super aggressive move. Went out and get Pierre-Luc Dubois, and now the Winnipeg Jets are the team that actually won that deal by being on the receiving end of that trade. The thing to me is, like, I'm with you. Finishing has been a big piece of the second round of the playoffs. To me, it's just because that's what a lot of these teams have. Like, you look at Edmonton. What do they have? Well, they've got goal scorers. Natural-born goal scorers are on that roster. Same thing is true with Dallas for Mikko Rantanen. The Toronto Maple Leafs. This is not a surprise that they have William Nylander and that they have a bunch of really skilled forwards, right? That's the name of the game for them. For Florida, how do they win? Well, with a bunch of physicalities, and they grind you to a halt. Sam Bennett is a big part of that identity for them. To me, it just is a reminder that you can win in different ways in the NHL. It's just about being excellent at whatever it is that you want your identity to be. If you want to be a physical team like the Florida Panthers, you can be that, and you could go win a cup playing that way. If you want to be a, like, flash and dash, let's get up the ice and be unbelievable off of the rush, you can win a Stanley Cup that way. It's hard to do, but the Edmonton Oilers could win the Cup this year. It's possible. I'm not predicting it, but they could do that because they have two of the best players in the world. So to me, it's about, okay, Blues, who do you want to be? And I think they've made it pretty clear. They want to be more in line with the Florida Panthers than they do the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. Defensively structured. They want to have a defense that gets engaged in the offense, and they want a hell of a forecheck that's imposing for the opposition. So this gets us back to Sam Bennett, Alex. You have been, in my opinion, leading the charge of not necessarily saying, like, I hate Sam Bennett, the guy sucks, don't want him on my roster. That is not your opinion on the matter. Right. The opinion is, like, what's it going to cost to get Sam Bennett, and are you really willing to pay that for that type of player? So as you're watching these playoffs and you think about what the Blues need to be in order to take that next step, have you changed your opinion at all on Sam Bennett, especially as you've watched him in the second round against Toronto be one of the best players on the ice?
Yeah, it's starting to get harder. I mean, look, like Sam Bennett, you also need net front presence. Like Corey Perry right now is the third most goals in the playoffs. Why? Because he stands in front of the net and he gets those goals. That's where Sam Bennett has
the
been.
Most goals on the Edmonton Oilers, and that's a team that has Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid.
Yeah,
on it.
Exactly. So, like, yes, it is starting to really shift my mindset with Sam Bennett. But here's I have been asked nonstop about Sam Bennett, specifically yesterday, like all of my family members. What about Sam Bennett? What about Sam Bennett?
Everybody loves him.
Here's my question to you all listening. What would you pay for a guy who averages 18, 19 goals a season, 42 assists, so gives you about 60 points a season and is 29 years old? What would you pay that player for a regular season number?
Say that again.
18, 19 goals, 40 assists,
so
about
20 goals, 60 points.
Yeah, about 60
roughly.
points. Yeah, and he's 28, 29 years old. That's the regular season.
Yeah, so I think the going rate for a player like that is probably you said 28, 29? Mm-hmm. 6 to 7 year deal. $7 to $8 million per year, depending on how they are defensively. There's other factors that, of course, need to go into it, but somebody like that is probably getting around that range in terms of the AAV.
Now, what would you do if he was a playoff performer? His last couple of playoff runs.
7 years probably is what you're looking at.
Because I just described to you Chandler Stevenson. Chandler Stevenson averaged for the final 3 years going into free agency. His 29-year-old year was the year he was a free agent, averaged about 18 goals and 40 assists, 60 points a season.
And he got 7 years, 6.5 per. Now we've seen the cap spike over the next few seasons. So, yeah, that's probably a 7-by-7 deal.
Sam Bennett in his last 3 years going into free agency, 20 goals and 23 assists. I'm not saying I don't like the idea of Sam Bennett, because Sam Bennett is a playoff performer, and I will be excited if they go out there and acquire that guy. But just like the Seattle Kraken are asking themselves about Chandler Stevenson, just like the Calgary Flames were asking themselves about Nazem Kadri, are you going to like this deal in 4 years? Are you going to like this deal in 5 years? Because if this was a team ready to fight for a Stanley Cup, which is why the Chandler Stevenson was so wild to me, because they weren't in that window. If this was a team ready to go for a Stanley Cup, you go out there and you throw the money at Sam Bennett, because he's a guy that takes you to the next level. Does anybody believe this team's going for a Stanley Cup next year?
I think you're closer with Bennett than without him.
I agree with that.
I think this is really about It's less about Sam Bennett to me and more about what are the alternatives.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the market, I mean, we talked about this last week, Alex, and who you could realistically go out there to acquire. Most of the players that are available are in their mid to upper 30s. So you go out to the market. Okay, Mitch Marner, 27 years old, but you're talking about $13 million a year potentially. Brock Besser, 28 years old, but you're talking about $9 million a year probably, and he's a winger, and you don't really necessarily need a winger. Same thing is true for Nikolai Ehlers. You look at Trent Frederick. I think he's best on the wing. Mangiapane's 28 years old, but he's just a fine player. I think you have players already internally that are better than him. So you're really talking about Sam Bennett or Ryan Donato. And those two players are not at all similar.
No.
So it's Bennett or bust if you're looking at it from the free agent market to upgrade your middle six down the middle. And then it becomes a question of, okay, what are the alternatives? Could you go to the trade market and find this player that we're talking about? Or are you willing to go to the free agent market and sign somebody that is a little bit older, that is more of a placeholder? Mm-hmm. And to me, those would be the two routes that I would prefer for the Blues. Is go to the market and find, okay, who's the older guy that you can get on a slightly cheaper deal, but certainly on a lower term deal, like 2 to 3 years instead of 7 to 8. Or who are the players that become available that may even be a surprise to us? You mentioned a couple of them last week that are a little bit younger and certainly come at a discounted rate from what we're talking about here with Sam Bennett. That would be my preferred route. If those guys do not emerge, if you can't find them, there isn't a player that you like on the market that ends up playing the style that you want, and you can't find anybody that will trade with you without you giving up, like, Jimmy Snuggerud or Jordan Kyrou to make that deal. I get how you end up with Sam Bennett. Yeah, I wouldn't blame them for it.
Like a team that comes to mind for me is what the Dallas Stars did with Joe Pavelski. Pavelski was 35 years old when they acquired him from San Jose. And San Jose was like, look, he's not helping us, so we just need to go into this rebuild mode. And then Pavelski would go on to average about 28 goals per season with that team. And he was a placeholder until Wyatt Johnston and some of their younger guys were ready to take that next role. Is that guy out there for you? That's the question I'm asking. These two players aren't alike, so I'm not comparing them. But my concern with Sam Bennett is what happened with Brandon Saad. They're not the same players, so please do not hear what I'm saying. But Brandon Saad, in his 3 years leading up to when the Blues signed him as a free agent, was averaging 19 goals a game or a season and averaging about 50 points. And by year 3 of that deal, people were frustrated. Do you think you're closer to winning a Stanley Cup next year or 4 years from now? Because my answer would be you're going to be closer to a Stanley Cup window in 3 to 4 years. Then follow-up question, what's Sam Bennett at that time?
So my personal comparison, and somebody on the text line brought this up as well, they said, is Sam Bennett just a poor man's version of Braden Shen? I think there's some similarities there. And so really it becomes a question of like, okay, look at what Braden Shen has been for you over the last 5 seasons, right? This is dating back to the 2020 COVID season. Over that stretch, he has been a 20-goal scorer, a 50-point producer, and he's been an average of a -5 for you on the ice. Been right around 50% on the faceoff dot, which is not all that dissimilar from where Sam Bennett has been for his career. Would you sign up for that? Like, would you sign up for what the last 5 years of Braden Shen have been if I tell you you can lock that in and that's going to be what Sam Bennett is? And you're paying him $7-ish million on a 7-year deal, and you'd still, at this point, have another couple of seasons on that deal. So it's a really similar situation to when you signed Braden Shen to his contract. I honestly don't know, man. I don't know.
Look at how people have reacted to Braden Shen over the last 3 years.
But now you're good, and Braden Shen is exactly where he should be in the lineup, and you've surrounded him with good players, and the same thing would be true for Bennett if you signed him.
Yeah.
He's coming in, and like next year you could have a situation where he's playing in the middle with like Bolduc and Neighbors.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty good line to me, man.
But are you then complaining about not having the second line center that you thought if Bennett is producing the same way that Braden Shen was producing? Because the one thing with Bennett, and again, I don't want this to sound like don't sign Sam Bennett. If they get him, I will say that this is a good signing by the Blues. What is it going to look like in a couple of years? Because Sam Bennett has been producing these numbers with Matthew Tkachuk on his wing. What does he do when he's producing these numbers with Jordan Kyrou on his wing?
Would people be mad if he was a 20-goal, 50-point producer next year for the Blues, making $7 million?
Would I be mad with that? No.
Do you think people, the casual Blues fan that texts into our show, do you think they would be upset if that's what he is next year?
Yes, if he's making $7 or $8 million. And that's my whole point with this, because the only Chandler Stevenson signed, who was a 20-goal scorer every single season, for $6.5 million. Now the cap is going up, and Sam Bennett could be on a team that's won, 2 back-to-back championships, 2 in 3, or gone to the Cup final in 2 and 4 years. You think that guy's just going to settle for $7 million for 7 years? No. You're probably talking 8+. That's when you start to get disappointed with the player.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Bradford Bruns, and I'm Brandon Kiley. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line to get involved in the show. Katie Wu joins us at 12 o'clock. Questions and Answers is coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Take the fast lane home weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. with Anthony Stalter, Jamie Rivers, and Gary Davis on 101 ESPN. 2 former pros and 1 average Joe. The fast lane is driven by Scrap Mart Metals Recycling.
Bet like the pros with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips.
right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
Joins us in about 10 minutes. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Alex, our text line brought up an interesting name. Actually, YouTube chat, rather, brought up an interesting name from our last conversation about the Blues trying to upgrade down the middle. Said, what about Brock Nelson? Why not consider him this offseason? Yeah, he's 34 years old, but he's a good player. He's good at the faceoff dot, and he is somebody that has been trusted for playoff contenders at times in the past. Is that a name you would be interested in? The projection from Daily Faceoff on Brock Nelson, for those curious, by the way, former Islanders guy, now with the Colorado Avalanche. 3 years, $7 million is what they're projecting for a 34-year-old Brock Nelson. Is that something you would be interested in comparison to the Sam Bennett idea?
Yeah, I think so. He to me is like a Tyler Bozak move, to where they signed Tyler Bozak at the time, $5.5 million for 4 years, because they knew they needed a placeholder until Robert Thomas was ready to be the centerman. As Ryan O'Reilly was there, Schenn was there, they wanted to be deep down the middle. Brock Nelson for 3 years versus Sam Bennett for 7. I know Brock Nelson is old, but Brock Nelson is coming off of back-to-back years where he scored 30 goals. On the New York Islanders, mind you. Mm-hmm. I don't love it. He's not a finisher. He's not the guy that we're talking about that takes you to the next level, but what's the goal? Are you trying to upgrade the second-line center so you don't have to rush Dvorsky and push Schenn down? For 3 years, Brock Nelson might be the perfect player to put in that role specifically.
It's different stylistically. Like, this is not... Sam Bennett and Brock Nelson are very different players.
Absolutely.
But if you're just talking, hey, how do you upgrade down the middle? I think Brock Nelson maybe upgrades this team more than Sam Bennett does. I think Brock Nelson might be a better overall player while playing a very different style than Sam Bennett. But Bennett brings that tenacity. He brings the physicality, all of the stuff that you hear about this time of the year for the teams that are winning in the playoffs. That is what Sam Bennett brings to the table. But I think Brock Nelson's game might age a little bit more gracefully because of that physical nature that puts a wear and tear on your body that Brock Nelson's doesn't. I could see that actually fitting in really well with the Blues, and I could see him fitting on a line with
Kyrou and Holloway.
Or with Bolduc and Neighbors. Or if you want to drop Schenn down, put Schenn on that line with Bolduc and Neighbors, put Brock Nelson out there with Kyrou and Holloway. I could really see that working out well. So I like that idea by the text line, or by the YouTube chat, rather.
To me, I like guys that can create offense for themselves. 37 goals for the New York Islanders. He was the leading goal scorer. You know who the second leading goal scorer on that team was? Anders Lee. They had nobody, with the exception of Matt Barzal, who was not on the same line as him because both are center, that had more than 30 assists. The next season with the New York Islanders, the next goal scorer was Zach Parise with 21 goals. Sam Bennett has played with Matthew Tkachuk and has scored 20 goals average every single season.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, why do you think that the Blues are not close to competing for a cup? 3 or 4 years from now, you'll say the very old players on D and in goal, they need to compete right now. The window is open. They need to move Kyrou, get another top 4 defenseman and a second-line center. Moving Kyrou should get you one of those things, sign a free agent, or make another trade to get you whatever Kyrou doesn't fetch. If you trade Kyrou, that is not exactly moving you toward the goal, most likely at least, of becoming a Stanley Cup contender. I do think that these things sometimes come together quicker than you expect. I think it's possible that not next year, but maybe the year after, you are a Cup contender, and that's why I'm not completely out on signing Sam Bennett. But, Alex, what is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can say 3 years from now the older players are older, and how effective are they going to be? But we're talking about Braden Schenn, who, I mean, third-line center at 35 years old. I mean, that plays to the role that you're looking at, but Falk won't be here. Letty won't be here. Parayko will be, 33 years old? Binnington will be 33 years old. I don't think that would seem a lot like what it was in 2016, 2017 with the Blues, where it was like, hey, Alexander Steen's 32, you got to start winning a cup. And what they do 3 years later, they went on and won a Stanley Cup. So, I mean, I understand the point. You got to win it now when you've got guys in your prime. But 3 years from now, Thomas is going to be 27, 28 years old. Kyra's going to be 28. Like, all of these guys, the core of your team, are going to be in that prime age. We can't be worried about what one or two guys are on the roster.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Do you think the Cardinals' winning streak will end tonight? Going up against Christopher Sanchez, he's a really good lefty, and you have a lot of lefty studs in your lineup. This is a really tough matchup for you. You got Libby on the mound. That's a nice guy going. I'll say yes and be pleasantly surprised if you end up finding a way to win this one. But yeah, this is a tough matchup.
It's Libby, then Gray.
And then Fetty.
I think I'm going to give Libby the credit. I think he keeps it going. He's been really good. I think that ends on the third game of this series.
Does Liberatore pitch against anyone other than an ace or a 1B on the other side? Jeez.
A few years ago, this was the situation that took place with Miles Michaelis. I think it was 2022, if I'm not mistaken, where Michaelis just was constantly going up against aces down the stretch, and Michaelis was like matching them beat for beat, and then lost a couple of those games. But Libby's gone up against a bunch of studs. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, the Cardinals are about to put John Mozeliak into a really difficult position if they continue to win this way. What would his decision look like at the deadline if this ends up being the case? We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. We'll get Katie Woo's thoughts on that when she joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Krugman Law Firm. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All right, happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by Katie Woo, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. Alex, I was listening to her podcast with Bernie Miklasz last night as well. Cardinal Territory. Highly recommend checking that out. As much Cardinals content as I can find, that is what I'm consuming these days, as they have won 8 consecutive games. They are 3 games above 500. It took them more than 75 games to get to this place a year ago. Katie, there's some good vibes around this team. How you doing today?
Guys, the birds are soaring. Sure, why not, right? I mean, it's been a really fun week of Cardinals baseball, and I think Nolan Arenado said it really well post-game when he said, there's a different vibe coming to the ballpark. They come to the ballpark, and they expect to win ball games instead of hoping something goes their way, and it's just made for a really enjoyable product over the last week or so.
All right, so let's get your thoughts on this. This is what we opened up with today is, are you really believing what we're seeing? Because they've won 8 games, the quality of the ball really all around, rotation, bullpen, defense, offense, it's all coming together. Are you believing it? Are you buying into what we're watching right now, Katie?
I don't know, guys. I have trust issues. But I think when you're looking at what the Cardinals do really well, I think they're one of the best defensive clubs in baseball this year. Their defense is much more like the type of Cardinals baseball fans were accustomed to seeing, right? Defense has been locked down, and it's allowed the pitching staff, which has thrown the most innings in the National League, by the way, the rotation, to pitch to their strengths, right? We know this Cardinals pitching staff is not going to overpower you or blow guys away with velo or strikeouts, but they are very good at inducing the ground ball and keeping the ball in the ballpark. Now, you look at expected numbers, expected slug, then maybe you have some cause for concern. But right now, the rotation is sustainable because they are so good at inducing ground balls and pitching to their strengths, and they have the defense to back it up. One thing I do believe in is this offense. I think we're seeing a much more consistent offense than we did last year. Yeah, there haven't been a ton of homers, but you know what they are doing? They're still slugging the ball. They have the most doubles in baseball, tied with the Red Sox at 82 coming into play today. Those are very encouraging statistics as well. And the bullpen, I think, which is the difference between April and May so far, it's completely different. And talking to manager Ollie Marmol after the game yesterday in D.C., said that the roles are starting to become defined and guys are seizing their opportunities, and you're being able to see that bullpen really take shape. So am I all in? I'm not sure. I think we're going to do the highs and the lows all year, right? But I am really encouraged with this direction that this team is going, and I find them really entertaining to watch, and I'm not sure if we were able to say that over the last 2 years.
Okay, the direction part for me, Katie, is why I have trust issues. Yes, of course, you don't know if you could buy into the winning, but the Cardinals told us all offseason long that this was the year about developing the younger players and finding out who they are, and some of that has been true. But Jordan Walker's been struggling. We've seen Nolan Gorman kind of take the backseat to Alec Burleson. What direction does this team go if in a month they're still fighting for that top spot in the NL Central?
Good problems to have.
It's a great problem to have. And I think it's really the question of the season, right? And The Athletic over the weekend, John Mozeliak, I thought actually was very candid and very insightful and answered a lot of questions on how that next month or 6 weeks will go. And I know from a fan perspective, he might not be the person you want to hear from. But if you were able to put away your judgments and your feelings aside and really look at the answers and what he was saying, it paints a clear picture. The Cardinals believe they can still achieve their runway desires and results at the same time. And right now, on May 12th, 1 game out of first place in the division, they're going to try to do both. Mo said they're still trying to straddle that fence, and whether or not you think that's a feasible strategy or not, that's a different conversation. But right now, the Cardinals are proving, and even in April, when the results weren't all the way there, they had pieces there that encouraged you that maybe something like this you could see. Maybe they could get back to 500 ball and continue their plan. The Cardinals don't need to come to a decision right now, and they have the next 4 to 6 weeks, to your point, before they do. Now, if they keep starting to win and this all of a sudden looks like a contending team coming into the trade deadline, then I think we're having a different conversation. But right now, the Cardinals can still run Jordan Walker out there. They can still run Nolan Gorman out there because the rest of the team is playing really well. So in a way, it's kind of buying Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman more time. If you think about it, at least from my perspective, because the team is winning ball games, because they're playing consistent baseball, the struggles of Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman are still a big deal, but we're not focusing on them as much as I think we would be if the team was playing like they were in April from a record standpoint.
Katie Woo is our guest here on 101 ESPN. Katie, I want to be clear here. This is not a complaint. This is a curiosity on my behalf. When are we going to see Ivan Herrera back behind the plate?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I understand what the Cardinals are doing here, though. And you look at the game planning that Pedro Pajes has done. He's been excellent. That probably goes a little under the radar because you can't measure that in the box score. Pozo's been super fun to watch. And he does a nice job behind the plate as well, also swings the bat well. Herrera, we know the issues there, right? We know about the arm. We know that he's coming back from injury. So for right now, I get what they're doing. We can have a separate conversation on why the Cardinals seem to have 20 DHs on their roster this year. But right now, it's not broken, so why fix it? And I think what they're doing is smart for the long-term workload management of Herrera. I would expect to see him catch one game this series. I'm not sure which one, but he should at some point be back behind the plate. But in terms of workload management, I'm fine with this.
I feel like, Katie, at this point, you're kind of fluent in the Ollie coach speak after games where you can kind of read between the lines on some of the things that he says or doesn't say. I thought it was interesting over the weekend on this point. Ollie Marmol was asked about the success that the rotation has had, and he immediately brought up the game planning from those catchers. Is that something that they believe really opened up the potential for this rotation? Is what they're getting out of Pages in that regard?
I think so. I talked to Andre Palante on Saturday after the game, and he said, yeah, personally, I had gotten away from game planning, and I wasn't doing a very good job, and I made a cognizant effort to be better in that regard, and he pitched his, second best start of the season on Saturday. The game planning is so important, and I think when pitching coach Jesse Blake first took over, the Cardinals had expanded, the regular season now included every single team in baseball. You weren't just beating up on the division all the time, and how you game plan changed. And I think the Cardinals, both from a pitching coach standpoint and their squad, and the catchers and their squad, have figured out a much better way to game plan and execute. And you have buy-in, especially from the young guys like Palante, like Liberatore. You know, the veterans, they've done this before. They know what to look at. They know how to game plan. But for these young pitchers, not just the starters, but you look at what Kyle Leahy is doing in the bullpen. You're looking at what Gordon Graceffo will hopefully see a little bit more. That's a lot of it is game planning, and execution, of course, is on their end. But the work's being done behind the scenes that, again, we don't see because it doesn't appear in the box score. That's instrumental, and I think it's leading to success across the board from this pitching staff, which is, guys, honestly, been really effective. It's just not in the flashy way that, the modern game allows for.
Katie, on the pitching side of things, you talk about effective. You mentioned Palante. We've seen Liberatore have a great year, and Miles Mikolas has done wonders this season considering what we all expected from him. Is this pitching rotation for real, or are we just kind of going through a hot streak?
That's what the Cardinals need to figure out, right? You look at guys like what Sonny Gray has done. He's been great this year. We obviously saw a much better version of Eric Fetty. I think, honestly, a big test for this rotation starts tonight. I am so intrigued to see what Matthew Liberatore does in this environment as Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia against a really good lineup. And I just kind of see how he would respond to that. It'll be a good test for a lot of those guys, but for Libby especially. I think the rotation's done a nice job. I know Miles Mikolas is not a popular name in April, but I think we should commend him for the efforts that he has done to be a serviceable starter. Look, this Cardinals rotation is not it's not star power, right? But you have 5 guys that are going to take the ball every day and give you a chance to win the game. And you have Steven Matz, who has been lights out in whatever role you want him to, and you have a young son, Michael McGreevy, coming up in AAA. I think personally this is the most confident I felt about a Cardinals pitching staff in the last 2 to 3 years. And whether or not it's sustainable, that's what we're going to find out. But for right now, what they've been able to do since the start of the season, first 6 weeks in, it's been really encouraging.
All right, Katie, so this lineup. The lineup's pretty good right now. They're batting .260 as a team, one of the best in Major League Baseball. They showed their slug on Sunday, even though they're not hitting a ton of home runs. They are right at or near the top of the league when it comes to doubles. And yet, Jordan Walker's batting .185. He's getting on base 26% of the time. He is one of the 5 worst qualified hitters in Major League Baseball so far this year. We gave our firm thoughts on this earlier today on what the runway should look like specifically for him. I did want to get your thoughts on this. He's batting .055 so far this month. What do you anticipate the Cardinals doing here? What does the runway continue to look like, and what does the playing time look like for him?
Okay, I'll preface this with the obvious, that it has not been good for Jordan Walker offensively for a while now, for the last 2-3 weeks, and it doesn't seem like there have been tangible changes that we can measure on the field. But if the whole point of this season was runway and opportunity and allowing players to have the chance to fail and figure it out at the big league level, this is the exact time to do it. Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, they're the faces of this transition year, right? Whether they asked to be or not, this is what you're thinking of. These are the 2 players the Cardinals identified as the most important to figure out. So if Jordan Walker is struggling, which he is, you keep running him out there because that's the whole point of this season. And I do think this is different than 23 and 24 when we reach, it always seems to be around end of April, early May when the Cardinals weigh their decision on do we send Jordan Walker down or not. I think when you talk to or you hear how Ollie Marmol speaks about Jordan Walker and you talk to Jordan Walker, there's a different level of conviction. I think Ollie is really committed into making sure Jordan Walker stays at the big league club. And I think what the Cardinals are trying to do right now and replicate, you can't do that anywhere else in the major leagues. The difference here and why they're going to stick with him, or why they should at least, is because of how convicted Jordan is with Brant Brown's hitting approach, how he's bought in. And I don't want to say that he wasn't bought in last year or the year before, but it's a different kind of mentality. And no, the results are not happening right away. No one's asking Jordan Walker to come in and all of a sudden be an all-star. You want to see incremental changes. So if you don't see that, okay, in the next 6 weeks, sure, then we're having a different conversation. And John Mozeliak has said that as well. But right now, when you're looking at where Jordan Walker is, I think both Mo and I think Ollie really and Brant Brown are really committed to seeing him figure this out. And they're going to continue to give him the opportunities to do so. Talked about this earlier. Because the team is playing so well and because the offense is clicking, it does buy Jordan more time as well. But the worst thing the Cardinals could do right now is send him to Memphis, because that totally negates the entire purpose of what the season was supposed to be about, especially for Jordan Walker.
Sometimes you feel good about yourself when someone more intelligent than you agrees with your opinion. Katie, I appreciate you. Okay, well, let's do this then, because you've got trust issues. I've got trust issues, Katie. I want to buy in, but I am still kind of on the fence. You've got 6 games on this road. What needs to happen for you to maybe start edging towards I'm all in?
I think the Phillies series will be a big one, obviously. It's a good team. It'll be a playoff environment. You saw what the Cardinals did at Citi Field. If they could do the opposite of that, that would be really great. And it's not that I think this team is set up for highs and lows. And that was the point of this season, right? Can they weather that? But let's take into consideration that they've played really good baseball. They've been really fun to watch. It's an entertaining product. And even on games that they lose, individual players are taking major steps forward. You're telling me that you're not excited to watch Victor Scott II play center field every inning, or that Brendan Donovan is slowly but surely becoming one of your most reliable Cardinals? I mean, we just talked about how excited we are for Liberatore, Kyle Leahy. You go down the list and certain guys are taking steps forward that you wanted to see. That's exciting alone. The fact that they're able to win games and put together a really fun stretch of Cardinals baseball, let's just enjoy it. Yeah, you want to. I see a lot of fan comments. Oh, they beat the Pirates and the Nets. They should. Okay, a win is a win regardless, and we're just going to act like they didn't win 2 of 3 from the Mets anyway. Enjoy this ride. It's been a long time in St. Louis where you could go to the ballpark and feel semi-good about this ball club. And I think the players and the coaches have done a really nice job in the first 6 weeks of the season of taking a very unorthodox situation where things more or less weren't really stacked in their favor, and turning that around and putting together a quality and competitive product on the field. Let's just enjoy it while we have it, guys.
It's amazing how it works. Last year, we were complaining that they couldn't beat the Pirates or the Nationals. And now when they do, it's like, yeah, but they're just beating the Pirates and the Nationals.
And they also happen to beat the Mets. But let's not talk about that.
And took 2 or 3 against the Phillies.
So.
Yeah.
It's a weird spot to be in, because they won 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee. They won 2 out of 3 against the New York Mets. They had some success earlier this season against the Phillies. Like, they actually are playing pretty well against some of these good teams.
They just swept the Pirates and the Nationals.
It just feels like so much, Katie, goes back to, well, yeah, but when they were on the road at Boston, when they were on the road at New York, those series were a disaster,
right.
And that's what I remember.
But it's a completely different bullpen, at least, and that's I think the big difference maker, right? We talked about bullpen roles and how they're bridging to the late innings. How they're bridging to the late innings in May is much different than how they were doing that in April, and that has led to a lot of late inning success. And the Cardinals in April were in the majority of their ball games, and I know you and I both got criticized for our morality wins. Like, oh yeah, they tried. That's not what it was. It was they're playing competitive ball games. They just have to figure out how to close them out, and it looks like they have from the bullpen perspective.
All right, Katie, we'll get you out of here on this. I did want to ask one quick question about Lars Nootbaar, whose success this season I think has flown a little bit under the radar because he's hitting 245, and people are just. You can hate that, and that's totally fair, but just I hope you understand that he can still be a productive player while also hitting 250. The guy gets on base like crazy. He's hitting for a little bit of pop. We saw that again yesterday. He is now on pace this season for 25 home runs, 90 RBIs from the leadoff spot. He never strikes out. He's on pace to walk more than he strikes out. Is this the player that the Cardinals sold us on Lars Nootbaar becoming?
Yes. And I understand that he was slumping over the last week or so, but he seems to be coming out of it. But when you phrase it like that, don't you think any competitive team that is in contention for a playoff spot would dream of having that in their leadoff spot? And that's just what he does offensively. He was never a bad defender in the corners, but he's become even better. I mean, look across the board with the outfield. The work that John Jay has been putting in has been so impressive. But you're seeing a dynamic player in Lars Nootbaar, and we've said it before, if he stays healthy, he can be a game changer for any club. This was a big year for Nootbaar, too. It wasn't to the degree of Walker and Gorman, but he was certainly on that list, and he's really seized the opportunity and become one of the most successful leadoff hitters in the game. Yeah, okay, if he's hitting 245, 250. This is not the baseball of where average matters. Everything else matters as well. So if he has a relatively low average, all things considered, but he's still doing everything else you just mentioned, don't you take that?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a $100 million player if he hits the open market. I know people push back against it, but it's the truth. If he's healthy and he hits like this, that player gets $100 million on the open market in the modern
Cardinals fans are begging for this Lars Nootbaar for the last 5 years, it feels like.
He's staying healthy,
yeah,
which is the most
and then you get him, and they're like, no, just kidding, not enough.
Yeah, no, I'd rather go get the free
agent. He's doing a really
agent.
good job.
Katie, we appreciate the time as always. Keep your head up out there. You're doing fantastic work. We'll talk with you again next week, hopefully coming off of a winning road trip.
You got it, guys. I appreciate you. See you later.
That's Katie Wu joining us as she does each and every Monday here on BK and Ferrario. Appreciate her time as always. I do get the sense, and Alex, I want to talk about this coming up on the other side. There are so many things that are coming back up from previous seasons. Like this team is not judged solely on what they do in 2025. It is also with acknowledging the scars that exist from the past 2 years. And I think that's fair. That's understandable. If you're a Cardinals fan, man, like those seasons sucked. And you were sold one thing and it became something totally different. And so it is hard to say, like, yeah, I'm totally in. They're 3 games above 500. Love what I'm seeing. Because you do have to remember what took place over the last 2 years. And it's deeper than that, too, right? Like this offseason, they didn't really do much of anything. And so fans, I think understandably so to a degree, are frustrated that they didn't do enough to bolster what this roster is. But what I would say to that is, man, part of what is allowing for this team to be as good as it is right now is that they didn't go out there and add just like the random $10 million starter. That would have been a problem. That means Matthew Liberatore isn't in your rotation right now. They didn't go out there and add some like random plug-and-play, perfectly fine DH. Well, they could have done that.
They didn't do the typical Cardinal moves.
Yeah, I actually prefer this route. I prefer what we're seeing right now because you finally get a good sense for what your internal improvement players can be.
Yeah.
That could be good or bad. There's some bad that comes along with it. But the good is Victor Scott. It's Lars Nootbaar. It's Brendan Donovan taking another step in his development. It's finding out, hey, Ivan Herrera, what are you at the major league level? At a minimum, pretty damn good hitter, it appears. So I've really enjoyed watching this team.
I have too. The core in place right now is what gets you excited, like Katie said. And we're not even talking about some of the pitchers that have gotten you excited when you see what Matthew Liberatore has done, when you see what Andre Palante is doing. And these are all what Cardinals fans have been begging for the longest time, cost-controlled, effective pitching. I get it. I get you're hurt, and I get it sucks. Again, I've been the biggest Cardinals pessimist of this entire show, but I have to appreciate what you've got in front of you compared to what the last few years have been. There has been no hope for the last 3 years.
No.
Now at least it feels like there is for a team that I didn't expect there to be at the beginning of the season.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Bradford Bruns. I'm Brandon Kiley. If you missed anything from our conversation with Katie Wu, you can check that out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is sponsored, as always, by
Schaefer Door Company.
Coming up next, the Cardinals are about to put John Mozeliak into a potentially difficult situation. How would he respond to that? We'll talk about it next year on BK and Ferrario.
The St. Louis Battlehawks host the Birmingham Stallions at the Battle Dome at America Center Saturday, May 17th. Then 1 week later, see the Battlehawks host the San Antonio Brahmas on Friday night, May 23rd.
It's 2 big home games and time to show the United Football League that CAW is the law.
Get all the ticket info and a chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to both games right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and Bradford on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, Alex, what I'm about to say is a good thing, right? This is a good thing. The Cardinals are making John Mozeliak's job difficult.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good thing.
So the reason why I bring this up is similar to what we saw with the St. Louis Blues, but a little different in the context of it, right? Like the nuance of these conversations really matters. The Cardinals came into this season acknowledging, hey, Eric Fetty, pretty good trade chip if necessary. Ryan Helsley, maybe the best trade chip at the deadline that any team can offer, but it's if necessary. Nolan Arenado could be moved at the deadline if necessary. Same thing could be true for like Wilson Contreras or Sonny Gray. There are a lot of guys on this roster right now that could have seen their destinations change by the time we get to mid to late July. But if the Cardinals are in it, do you make those moves? And right now, you're firmly in it. You're 1 game behind the Chicago Cubs in the NL Central. You're 3 games above 500. It took you 75 games to get to this place a year ago. So, Alex, as we sit here today, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Buster Olney had a piece over on ESPN.com earlier today with the X factors at this year's trade deadline, and they had the Cardinals prominently represented in this piece as like the X factor of the deadline. How do you handle this if you're John Mozeliak? If you're in it, let's say you're a couple of games up or a couple of games back of the playoffs and you're heading into the trade deadline.
I think I'm going to handle it kind of the way that Buster laid out the Tampa Bay Rays handled it, to where you look around the market and there's just not a lot of teams that have a lot of great options. Tampa was like, we've got some, so let's put them out there. And understand, like, if you're in it, I know these conversations are going to be very difficult, but Ryan Helsley's stock will never be higher than at the trade deadline if you're in it. Eric Fetty's stock will never be higher than when you're in it at the trade deadline. So I know it's not a sexy answer. I think I have to gauge the market if I'm John Mozeliak. People might not like it, but if I'm getting hell of offers from somebody for Eric Fetty and Ryan Helsley that I know can't be matched than any other time in their careers, for the betterment of my team's future, you kind of have to accept that. Because as much as you being in it, 1 game up, 1 game behind the Cubs at the deadline, we've seen how fast that can go away. And then at the end of the season, you don't make the playoffs. You held on to those guys to make the playoffs, and then you're not getting the same value for them. So I've kind of remained steadfast on this. And look, I love what this team is doing, but it's going to be really hard for me to look at this team at the deadline if they're, unless they're like 5 or 6 games up on the Cubs holding down first place. But even then, if the market is going to offer me something really good for Ryan Helsley and really good for Eric Fetty, I'd really have to consider it.
Man, I think this would be one of the hardest situations for any team to be in. And the reason being is because of what you said about Helsley. Like, you could get so much for him. And if you made Sonny Gray, for example, available, you could get a king's ransom for those two.
Yeah.
Just those two. And if you traded them to the same team, my God, the level of prospects that you'd be able to get is, I mean, up there with some of the bigger trades that we've seen at the deadline in recent years.
Yeah.
But if you're in a playoff race, don't you owe it to this team? Don't you owe it to these fans? Don't you owe it, frankly, to yourself to try to see that thing through? I mean, you came into the season with Ryan Helsley for a reason. You came into the season with Eric Fetty for a reason. You thought these guys could help you right now. Otherwise, you would have traded them in the offseason, right? The other thing is there's another out. If it was just keep them and lose them for nothing or trade them at the deadline, those are the only 2 scenarios. I think you probably have to basically move them no matter what, especially Helsley, because the return is just going to be so significant for him. There is door number 3. Like, there is a third option here. And I don't know how much people are going to love it, but you could qualifying offer those guys. You could use the qualifying offer on Helsley and or Fetty. And if you keep them, well, cool, you've got a $20 million player for each of them next year. You're fine with the money. This team can make it work money-wise if they end up with either or both of those 2 players on a $20 million deal for 2026, right? Or you lose them and you get what is effectively like a second-round draft pick in return. That's not a insignificant asset, man. a lot of the guys that you'd be trading for are potential second-round picks from a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. Like, you could go out there and get a real player with the pick that you get in return for one of those two players. Again, if they were to leave and go test the market elsewhere, I'm guessing Helsley would. You might just get Fetty back on a 1-year, $20 million deal, and then you can just do this all over again next year.
Yeah.
So that's where I have a really tough time with this. Am I crazy if I would lean towards sticking with what you've got?
No.
And potentially even adding?
Look, I mean, you're not crazy, because part of me and the part that wants to see this team have success, again, I don't want to be hypocritical, because I said the playoffs were very important for the Blues to taste what the playoffs were like, and that's how you had to lean into it. And I could argue the exact same thing for this Cardinals team. My part with this is just, I look at the future, and the reason it was important for the Blues was because all of these guys are going to be back next year. Is Ryan Helsley going to be here when you're trying to compete? I don't think so.
I mean, maybe, though, because, could he be here next year?
But after that, is he going to be here?
No, probably not, but maybe.
Yeah. But then, big picture, he's not the closer that's going to help you get to a World Series.
But could he help you get to the playoffs this year? And how much is that playoff run worthwhile?
That's what, if you're John Mozeliak, you have to talk with Oli Marmol and find out how much is. I mean, look, these guys are performing right now in the regular season, and you really don't want to take the wind out of their sails in the middle of the year by saying, nope, sorry, and then you have to try and pump them back up for the end of the season. The starting pitchers don't bother me as much. Like Miles Michaelis, fine if you want to do it. Eric Fetty, if you want to do it. I think Michael McGreevy should be in the rotation at that point. So at that time, we're in a different position. It really, to me, comes down with Ryan Helsley. Are you willing to trade the closer that could get you to the playoffs, or are you willing to kind of push the team back a bit and say, hey, you're going to have to close this one by committee, but we're doing this for the better of our future? And that's the part I always go to. That's why I think a lot of people like Doug Armstrong. He said it numerous times in that press conference. I always ask myself the first question and the last question, is this the best thing for the Blues?
Yep.
And if you're John Mozeliak, you have to ask, is trading Ryan Helsley or going for the playoffs the best thing for the Cardinals? And that's the question that, I mean, I don't know how to answer that.
It's really, really tough. It's really tough to answer. And I would also be curious, and there's no one answer for this, everybody's different, but I wonder which one fans would prefer. If you're a Cardinals fan, because I think we've had text from both sides, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL from the 618. A playoff push could do a lot of good to get those young guys some experience. Another text, back-to-back from the 417. No, just do the trades, please. It needs to be done. And so, you will have firmly implanted fans on both sides of things where if the Cardinals don't make these moves, you will have a segment of this fan base, I don't know how large, honestly, that is furious because you just opted out of whatever the return could be for Ryan Helsley, for Eric Fetty, for Phil Maton, for whatever else you could potentially make available at the deadline. Or you will have other fans on the other side of things that are saying to themselves, you're a game up in the division on the Cubs, and you just punted on the season by trading Ryan Helsley and trading Phil Maton, and now we have no bullpen to speak of, and you have effectively decided to nuke our season with 2 months to go because you wanted to get a nice prospect? Well, how'd that go for you 2 years ago when the only prospect we've seen at the major league level that has impacted you in any meaningful way is Thomas Saggese from that massive 2023 sell-off that they had with Jack Flaherty and with all those bullpen arms and guys that they decided to trade. Jordan Montgomery as well. So we're just doing that over again, and we're opting out of the playoffs to do so? I understand both perspectives.
I guess here's the part for me, too. Let's say you stick with it and say, you know what, we're going to make a run and we're going to get to the playoffs. Do you expect it to go deep into the playoffs, or are you just saying, let's get to the playoffs?
So here's my question to you, Alex. Couldn't I have turned this on you and done the exact same thing with the Blues?
Yeah, you absolutely could have.
And you were in favor of them going for it, right?
Yeah.
Even after they had lost at the deadline that day, Colton Parayko.
Correct, but they had a roster where, with the exception of Ryan Suter and a couple of others, that entire team was going to be back next year.
Sure.
Now, again, Cardinals have that in place with all the offensive players. But there's still pieces that need to be brought in to go further into the playoffs. I don't think Ryan Helsley gets you that piece. But I guess my other question was if you value the importance of the playoffs, what is that piece that you could be getting for Helsley? Because is it great? Because if it is, can't you look at the bullpen and say, look, you've been one of the best in the league. We believe that you can still push us into the playoffs.
I want to stick with this. What is the significance of this season and getting to the playoffs? You care about that as a fan. Like, if you know this team cannot win the World Series this season, there's almost no chance of it. Do you still value the fact that they could potentially get into the playoffs this year? We certainly did with the Blues. Would you value that with the Cardinals? Want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We'll get into that next here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
TR Hughes Homes offers half off, up to $40,000 in options, and up to $5,000 in closing costs. trhughes.com.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Classic Air Care who have been making people comfortable since 1926. And now when we're getting into the warmer weather, that means that AC unit is going to be on consistently. And the number one thing Classic Air Care wants to remind everybody is change your filter. If you want your HVAC system to last as long as you need it to, then you need to make sure that that filter stays clean. And here's the thing with it. It's a furnace filter. Nobody thinks about it affecting your HVAC system, but it really does. And what I love about Classic Air Care, because everyone like me, you have other things in life and you forget, oh, shoot, I should have changed that a month ago. Classic Air Care has got a furnace filter program to where they will send you a filter every month, and it's just that reminder on your doorstep, oh, got to go change the furnace filter. That's how you keep it going long for you. Plus, they have the maintenance agreement out there where they come out twice a year to clean the unit, fine-tune the unit, make sure it's good to go. That gets you through the hot summer or the cold winter so that it can last you as long as possible. Plus, Classic Air Care offers duct cleaning, which is really good to do in the springtime to get rid of all that dust in the air in your home when the HVAC system, the AC unit is running. Call Classic Air Care today. Tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, or schedule online at classicaircare.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. Family-friendly event with live music from Craig Morgan on Friday night and the Wallflowers on Saturday night. Enjoy plenty of cold beverages, food, and fun with 100% of the proceeds going toward the Songs for Soldiers mission of helping combat veterans in need. Get more details on this year's Songs for Soldiers benefit concert at songsforsoldiersstl.org. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alex, time for a quick Junk Drawer story for us today. Alongside Alex and Bradford, I'm BK. T-Bone out today. He'll be back in tomorrow. So we've talked in the past about these stories where a kid gets a hold of your phone, they order something, and suddenly you're on the hook for a massive bill. Well, it happened again. In Lexington, Kentucky, a woman was in a big mess when her 8-year-old Liam got on her Amazon account. He ordered 70,000 Dum-Dum suckers. Here's the problem. These came in 22 different cases. Oh. And it cost her $4,000.
Oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
So,
what do you do with 70,000 Dum-Dum suckers?
Holly, the Kentucky woman, gets on the phone, as you can imagine, with Amazon. She's like, oh my God, this was a huge mistake. I obviously didn't want $4,000 worth of suckers delivered to my house. What can I do? How do I give these back to somebody and get my money in return? I do not want these. And Amazon was like, yo, I don't know. Like, it sounds like
enjoy
a
the
problem,
suckers.
kinda. Eventually, she got a hold of her bank. She got a hold of some media to get this out there because she wanted somebody to help get the word out of, like, I need my money back on this thing. And Amazon did say, okay, we'll go ahead and give you the refund for this. They made it all right. But, dude, they've got a picture of what it looked like when they delivered all of this to her house.
Oh,
it is
my God.
15 massive, like...
Looks like a diaper box.
Yeah, I was about to say a value pack diaper box of like 150 diapers in there. That's what these dumb suckers look like as they've been delivered at the front of her home.
I don't know why Amazon would fight that so much. Now, it depends on how long it took her to call back, but like Amazon has one of their things that says, hey, this was an accidental purchase. Can you refund my money? And they will. I stick to this, though. How does your kid know your password? Passcode.
It's probably already logged in. Like mine, you can go ahead and it's just always logged in on my phone.
Oh, is it? Yeah. See,
what you got to do though is you have to put parental controls on it.
Yeah,
so
mine's
that way
set
when
up.
you buy something, you have to either have the Face ID or your.
That's what mine's set up with the Face ID because my daughter's she's got one of those like Amazon Kids tablets, but it's only got like a couple of games on it. It's got like, ABCs and things like that, but it does always have the option of like, hey, click to buy more stuff. She'll click on it just because she's clicking everything, and then it like sets the alert and she goes, Daddy, I need it. And then it's like, nope, cancel out of that one. That's the part that I don't understand when these happen. It's like, how do you not have that security on it if the kid's going to get your phone?
Well, the crisis has been averted. She was able to get her $4,000 back for the 70,000 dum-dums as they were returned.
If anything, you'll set up for Halloween for the next 35 years.
$4,000 on suckers. Alongside Alex and Bradford on BK. Coming up next, somebody in the YouTube chat mentioned earlier today, can you guys please talk about the positives with the Cardinals? I feel like we've done that a decent amount, but they specifically referenced Victor Scott II. Guess what? We can do that next year on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. It is time for you to unlock your inner champion. The place to do so is with Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. The easiest way to do so, honestly, online, victorymenshealth.com. When you get over to their website, you can see all the things that they have to offer that will help you unlock that inner champion today. That means different things for different people. For some, maybe you want to find out where your cardiovascular health is at. They've got testing for that available for you over there. For others, weight loss goals, erectile dysfunction issues that you'd like to get taken care of, or low testosterone. It comes from many of us, especially around the age of 30 or 40. You don't feel like you have that same oomph when you wake up in the morning. You're not getting the same amount of results from your workouts. Could be due to low testosterone. They can check out where your levels are at over at Victory Men's Health, and you can book that first appointment by going to their website, victorymenshealth.com. Super easy process. Put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what exactly it is that you'd like to do to unlock your inner champion. It's Victory Men's Health and online at victorymenshealth.com.
This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Timing on this is funny. If you want to go through the lineup game early or later on this afternoon, you can go ahead and turn down your radio for the next 15 seconds or so. 3, 2, 1. Victor Scott not in the lineup today, but we're going to talk about him right now here on BK and Ferrario alongside Alex and Bradford on BK. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Alex, you mentioned earlier today, like Victor Scott kind of feels like the Dylan Holloway of the Cardinals. He didn't have crazy high hopes. Dylan Holloway was actually like the secondary piece of the two offer sheets.
We were going to be pissed about Dylan Holloway signing and not Broberg.
Like disappointed. You're excited about the fact that, hey, you got this nice piece. Maybe he can be a middle six forward for you moving forward. And then you see what he is. It's like, oh, damn, they have like a top line caliber player who's 23 years old. That's amazing. Victor Scott was, I would say, the lowest of the young prospects that are coming through the system. Like, it was Walker, Gorman. You had those two guys at the top of the list. Even Ivan Herrera, I think, came with a little bit more notoriety than a guy like Victor Scott. Mason Wynn certainly was in that category as well. He was like 5th among their big prospects. He was probably more in the Alec Burleson lane.
I mean, we were talking about Michael Ciani should be on this team over Victor Scott on this team. So that kind of tells you, I mean, nobody on this roster was lower than, in my opinion, what Victor Scott was in terms of the expectation.
And yet Victor Scott's been amazing.
Yeah.
The guy plays gold glove caliber defense. It's crazy how much better he is defensively than he was a year ago. Like, legitimately crazy. And yet that is only dwarfed by the fact that he is a legitimately good hitter. Like, there is nothing fluky about this. He's just a really good hitter. He's already up to 11 stolen bases on the season. Alex, this is like an ideal player for Cardinals fans. You have a stud defensive center fielder who is right now at least an above league average hitter, adds a ton of speed on the base paths, once again scored from first the other day. Now, this was on a double. It's a little bit of a different situation, but
doesn't count in BK's metering.
He's doing everything. And that's where the Holloway thing to me really shines, the comparison to him. Holloway is good at everything. He's a good forechecker. He skates like crazy. He's physical. He's got a really nice shot. He helps you on the power play. He can distribute to others. He can do a little bit of everything. That's Victor Scott. There's really nothing on the baseball field that he can't do right now.
Yeah, I think the reason that I had the Dylan Holloway comps over the weekend, because Victor Scott is like, I'm ready to buy a jersey of this guy. He has officially gotten me in on this Cardinals team for the way that he plays, the attitude, the personality that he has. I just love everything about it. But the reason I kind of make the Dylan Holloway comment was, you know, prior to Dylan Holloway, and Broberg gets tossed in here, but just the forward group for conversation's sake with the Blues, you looked at it and nothing got you excited. Like, coming into the year, you had Joseph and Texier. Bolduc was probably the one that got you excited, but you were like, meh, what's this offense really going to do? I know what it is. Everybody has to step up. That's what this offense was for the Cardinals. Like, you had guys, but it was like, yeah, okay, this is what it's expected to be. And then, boom, all of a sudden, Dylan Holloway showcases his ability to do everything. You're like, oh, okay, now you found something. That's what Victor Scott is. So I said last week, it's like he's the face of a franchise type of player. And that's what he and Mason Wynn have done. And I lump Mason Wynn into this now because it's like you've got two guys that the expectations were like, yeah, they're going to be really good pieces, but these aren't going to be the 40 home run hitters, the 100-plus RBI guys. They're just going to be Gold Glove Award nominees that put up a really good season. But that really good season, Gold Glove, right now is changing the dynamic of the team. And that's where the Dylan Holloway felt like. It's like now going past this year, you have higher expectations because Dylan Holloway was something you didn't expect. That's what it is with Victor Scott now.
Somebody on the text line just brought up what I think is a really interesting comparison for Victor Scott. His playing style, all of it. Shane Victorino-esque.
The flying Hawaiian.
I love that comparison.
That's a really good one.
First of all, I loved Shane Victorino.
I did too.
And he was a winning player on really good baseball teams. Like, whether that was in Philly or later on in his career, what he was able to do in Boston for that brief season or two that he had there. I really like that comparison.
I do too.
The speed element, the defense element, the ability to hit in all situations. It's for a little bit of pop, but more it's about the average. He can hit to all fields. I like that comparison a lot. And I think there are definitely some similarities between what you are seeing right now and what Shane Victorino was. Alex, this is one of the things where, like, you know, I'm a nerdy numbers guy, right? Are you looking at Shane Victorino's numbers right now? Do you have his baseball reference page?
I pulled it up.
Close it real quick.
Okay.
Bradford, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well. Let's do a BK game real quick. OPS Plus is, for anybody not familiar, it is able to, like, for that era, for that park, it adjusts for those factors. It's on a scale of 100, where 100 is league average, and anything above that number is that percentage above league average. Anything below that is that percentage below league average. So if you're a 110 OPS, you're 10% above league average as a hitter for that season. What do you think for his career Shane Victorino's OPS Plus was?
His career, I will set it at 115.
I'll go a tick higher, 122.
That's how I remember him as well. Would you believe me if I said 102? He was almost exactly a league average hitter for his career. In fact, he only really had 2 full seasons in his entire career where he was more than 10% above league average.
Man, I thought it would have been higher than that.
Totally, because you feel his presence, right? Like, whether that's the average that he added, the triples that he added, the speed on the bases, or the defense, like all of the stuff that he did contributed towards winning, which is why in his career, he was on average worth 4 wins per season. That's a really freaking good baseball player. But in terms of the OPS Plus, I like this comparison for Scott because he might be something similar, where he's just a slightly above league average hitter, but he ends up being so valuable to your roster because of all of the other stuff that he brings to the table. So I love that comparison from the text line.
Somebody said slow down on Scott. He's playing well, but it's less than 50 games. Here's why that I'm not going to slow down with it, because yes, it's less than 50 games, and yes, you can always go into a little bit of a shell. But the reason that the excitement is there is because we are seeing this player in one off season. One off season, he went from a guy that wasn't good enough to hit at the majors, was sent back down, was back up, played great defense, still made some questionable decisions, but offensively was nothing. We were talking about him being like the end of the career Yadier Molina, where it's like, look, he just plug a dude into the lineup because he's an okay hitter, but his defense is great. We're not doing that with Victor Scott. In less than 50 games, but in one offseason, he went from needing to make corrections to going back to spring training, being the best hitter throughout spring training, and then working through it at the beginning of the season. You don't think other teams have started to try and make adjustments to Victor Scott? And they've done it, and so has he, and he has stayed relevant.
And this is also why I think VS2 presents a different case study here, guys, because what is the old axiom, right? Speed never slumps. And if Scott continues to demonstrate an ability to, at the very least, get on base, I don't care about the average. I care about the contact rate. And wherever you're situated in the lineup, are you getting on base on a fairly consistent basis? If so, you know that he's going to be able to run wild.
Yeah. And I think it's okay if he's not like a 130 OPS plus guy. Mm-hmm. You know, like if he ends up the majority of his career being 700 to 750 in terms of his OPS overall, just to go more traditional, or like a 260 hitter with not a whole lot of pop, that's okay because of all of the other ways that he can impact a baseball game. We got somebody in the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN who said, dare we say 5-tool player for Victor Scott? No, I don't think so. I don't think Victor Scott has that kind of power. And again, that's okay. Like to the texter who said you guys are getting way out over your skis, I guess maybe if you think what we're saying is that suddenly Victor Scott is going to become Wilson Contreras as a hitter while maintaining like Gold Glove caliber defense, I don't see that. For me, I think Victor Scott can be what we all hoped Harrison Bader would become. A guy that is a real threat on the bases, hits a little bit above league average, and as a lefty, that's even more valuable than what you had with Harrison Bader, who did most of his damage against left-handed pitchers just because there's more righties in the league in terms of the right-handed pitchers. So I don't think we're getting out above our skis. I think what you're looking at here is a potential all-star caliber center fielder who hits right around league average and adds so much value with his wheels and with his defense that you're consistently looking at somebody that can impact games the way that Shane Victorino did for a decade, whether that was in Philadelphia or eventually with Boston. With Alex and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, I do want to get to the other side of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Back to the negative.
No, I think this could actually end up being a negative conversation that speaks to the positives of what we've seen so far this year, what would you say right now is the biggest hole in the Cardinals? If you're somebody that's not buying into the Cardinals, what is that thing that's holding you back? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. Your home, your business, it needs a new facelift. It needs a look. It needs to have a new coating to make the house look brand new, to make the business look brand new. That's where Rhino Shield comes into play. Whether it's the water damage that has taken place, you're getting those water stains on the side of your home, or the paint's chipping off from all of the UV rays beating down on it, or frankly, maybe you just bought the home and you just don't like the way that it looks. That's where Rhino Shield can come out and change the way that it looks. Plus, you get guarantees with the coating that Rhino Shield use. And what I mean by that, it's a 25-year transferable warranty. It is engineered, the product that they use, to outlast paint. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, and it sticks to whatever surface you have, whether it's aluminum, block, wood, cedar, asbestos, brick. Rhino Shield gives you the coating of a rhino and protects your home. So give Darren a call today. Have him come out, walk you through the free estimate. He'll give you his advice on what he thinks looks great for your home. His team does an incredible job. They can get the job done in a weekend, and it looks brand new, and you get that confidence that it's going to last. 877-25-RHINO. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25RHINO.com.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
What's the biggest hole right now for the St. Louis Cardinals? Alongside Alex and Bradford on BK. So when you think about what could be preventing you from really buying in, Alex? Or thinking to yourself, man, this is why the Cardinals, while in a hot streak right now, winning 8 in a row, eventually it's going to come back down to earth because of X, Y, or Z. What are those things for you? What are the things that you're still not totally sold on for the Cardinals?
Dude, this sounds like the worst answer to this question, but I guess it's just longevity. Meaning, I don't know if you've got the pitching that can carry you from start to finish, sure, whether that's depth or if it's just relying on what the guys are going to do. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from some of these starting pitchers because they've had an outstanding start to the year. Miles Michaelis specifically. Maybe it's the trust issues, but it's hard for me to look at what they've done in the first month of the season and say, yeah, I think they can carry that for the end of the year. I was looking at it. What was it, that 2015 starting pitching or the 2016 starting pitching that had John Lackey and Carlos Martinez and Michael Wacha and Jaime Garcia? That was when it was awesome. Do I think all 5 guys can do that and give you 30 starts this year? No. And then you get to the depth questions, which I think you all like Michael McGreevy, but that's one guy. And if 2 or 3 fall off for you, how do you withstand that? So that would be the part that's holding me back. It's just the longevity. Can the pitching sustain this for an entire season?
Bradford, for you, what is it?
At present, and it's kind of funny to actually identify this aspect at the moment because we are coming off of many different series in which we have actually witnessed great relief pitching. But to use one of Alex's terms here, as far as longevity, consistency when it comes, honestly, to some of those bridge relievers. Because I truly believe, despite some of the struggles you've witnessed this year from Helsley at the back end, Maton has largely been great. I worry about later in the season. Right now, you see the likes of Liberatore. You see the secondary pieces in your rotation consistently going deep into games. But what happens when you get into those summer months, when you get into June, July, and August, and these guys necessarily aren't exactly putting up 6, 7 innings, working deeper into games? I'm not worried at the very back end. I'm worried about the guys preceding them because with the exception of Leahy, somebody who's really come on in a strong manner this season, can you really put your eggs in the basket of a Roycroft? Can you really trust in Romero moving forward? Right now, that's what I'm identifying.
I do worry a little bit about the lack of the true home run hitters. That is something that I think is a little worrisome to me. Not that I think this offense is going to fall off a cliff. I don't feel that way. And like they're making up for their lack of homers with the number of doubles that they're hitting right now. They have, I think it's like 85 doubles on the season as a team. It's crazy the amount of doubles that they're producing. They're number 1 in Major League Baseball, tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Like they've been really good in that regard. However, they're 20th in home runs hit so far this year with just 38. So that is something that I do worry a little bit about. I'm with Alex, though. To me, it goes back to the starting pitching. And I think a lot of this, for me, Alex, is just tied to Matthew Liberatore. It's like, wow, okay. Andre Palante is a fine number 5. Sonny Gray, I think last year we saw that guy can be a number 1. It's not a traditional number 1 starter, but he can be, I think, the best starter on a good team, even if not a World Series contender. I think Fetty can be a mid-rotation starter for you. And then whether it's Michaelis or McGreevy or Matt Slitt, you've got guys that can fit into that back-end conversation. The question for me about the ceiling of this team comes down to, is Matthew Liberatore a legitimate number 2 starter? I don't know. But if he is, it really does change a lot about the outlook for this team. I mean, how long have we been talking about this? You match up okay in game 1 or 2, depending on where he starts, with Sonny Gray on the mound. Where you have lacked is that second option for you, right? And if Matthew Liberatore, right now he fits into that criteria. He's allowing less than 1 walk and hit per inning pitched. He's got a sub 3.1 ERA. The strikeout rate is pretty damn good. The walk rate is among the lowest in Major League Baseball. And he's getting deep into games. Like, there is nothing thus far, if I'm just looking at the results, that should leave me saying Matthew Liberatore is not a top 2 starter on a contender. But we've never seen this before with him. And I do wonder what this looks like a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road. Can he keep going like this? We saw Fetty run into a wall down the stretch last year, where his workload just caught up to him. So to me, my biggest question about them, and it could be answered in a positive, and it ends up being the thing that unlocks the potential of the team. But my biggest question about the 2025 Cardinals is, what is Matthew Liberatore?
Yeah.
Can he sustain what he has been thus far? And if yes, this team might just flat out be better than we expected. But if no, I think eventually that pitching will probably catch up with them, and that'll be the thing that sends them closer to a 500 record than what could be their ceiling of 85 to 90 wins.
Yeah, it's interesting to isolate Liberatore because I do think that's the thing that makes this different. Because, like, let's say you lose an Andre Palante or you lose a Eric Fetty or a Miles Michaelis. To me, that doesn't make you as vulnerable as if you lose a Sonny Gray or a Matthew Liberatore, because those guys are ones that are giving you every single outing, 6+ innings, allowing 2 or few runs right now, and are providing you the swing and miss stuff. So we talked for the longest time about not having a stopper, a guy that every single time he takes the mound every 5th day, you're like, we're good, we will be fine, and we don't have to use a lot of our bullpen. Right now, it feels like you've got 2 of those compared to needing to worry about your bullpen to get you through games for 4 of them. So the depth, because, look, injuries are going to happen at some point. You're going to have to deal with 2 or 3 of your starting pitchers to go down for a amount of time, and how do you fill that void? And I don't think you have the depth for that. Frankly, you don't have the depth for that because it's Matz, McGreevy, and then that's it. But do you lose guys that you can fill that void with versus guys that you don't? And you're right. I think it's Liberatore and Gray are the 2 that you just can't replace right now.
Yeah, to me, it really does. So much about this season, the ceiling comes down to Liberatore. This is something that I did want to ask you about, though, because Katie mentioned this yesterday on her podcast, Alex, with Bernie that she did. She said the floor of this team she thinks is much higher than it has been in a long time. And what she meant by that was they just have so many guys that are quality players, whether that be hitting-wise right now. You look at the lineup on any given day. You typically feel like you have 6 to 7 guys in there that you're pretty comfortable with. And that's more than they've had in recent seasons. Pitching-wise, the floor is much higher for everybody that is starting a game for you. And then the bullpen is just deeper with solid contributors, if nothing else, than it has been in a while. Do you agree with that? Do you think the floor is higher for the Cardinals than it's been in a while?
Yeah, I do. And to me, the floor is higher because of your offense. Because the floor in the past was a team that was going to, barely scratch 80 wins, and it was because your offense couldn't do anything. And when your offense couldn't do anything, you're relying on your pitching to be great. Your pitching wasn't great, and so it was just a trickle-down effect. Now, if you're talking about the offense always being consistent, which it has been, with the exception of like 2 series, it has been consistent from start to finish. If your pitching struggles, cool, your offense can score you 10 runs if you need to. If your bullpen struggles, cool, your offense could pull you back into the game. It covers up all of the other warts if there are any for the team. So, yeah, the floor is absolutely different because now I don't view this team as barely getting to 80 wins. Now I wonder if they can push 86 plus.
I think the floor is much higher than I expected it to be coming into the season. The reason why is because the young players I think are better quicker than I anticipated. Victor Scott really helps with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the defense is a really big part of that. In recent seasons, I remember I talked with Stalter about this last year because we were talking about what the biggest differences were between the Brewers and the Cardinals. And you'd look at it and it's like, man, the Brewers pitching is actually not all that great. It's fine, but it's not that great. Their hitting is better than what the Cardinals is, but not by a wide enough margin that you'd be like, one of these teams is legitimately bad and the other team is clearly the best in the division. The place where you could go and you could see the widest gap between where the Cardinals were and where the Brewers were, just their defense, man. They were a well above average defensive team over the last few years, and the Cardinals were bad. And this year you look at it in any metric that you look at, or if you just watch the games, you can see it. Dude, they're one of the best defenses in baseball right now. So when you play really excellent defense behind your starting pitching, it's what they did in 2022 to a large degree. 2021, certainly during that 17-game winning streak, the defense was unbelievable. You have an offense that's opportunistic, hits a bunch of doubles, and you have a pitching staff that's getting deep into games with their starters and puts less of those leverage innings on your bullpen. Like, yeah, this is what it should look like. So I think the floor for me with the way that they're playing right now, this is barring any kind of an injury, I think the floor for the 2025 Cardinals is like 80 wins. I'd be pretty surprised if this version of the Cardinals is significantly worse than that. Yeah, again, that's barring injury. You just can't predict that stuff.
I think the floor is a 500 team. And so what would there be, 81 and 81? I think that's the floor of this team because we were talking about this with the Blues. Like, if you're a 500 team, you're going to finish around 500. And I still don't know what this team is, despite an 8-game win streak, but I do feel like I know they're not going to be a team that's going to win 75 and pick in the top 3 of the draft.
He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. In or out coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
We're just a couple of weeks away from the return of the Dotem Golf Tournament with a morning after. Presented by Michelob Ultra, May 29th and 30th at Oak Valley Golf Course and Resort. Get your foursome together for a full day out on the course with TMA, including complimentary breakfast from Donut Drive-In, lunch from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, all the Michelob Ultra, the 100 West Dental closest to the pin competition, a long drive contest courtesy of Pondoff's Anonymous Recovery Podcast, and an after party with food from Texas Roadhouse Thursday and Super Smokers Barbecue Friday. A portion of the proceeds will go to support the St. Louis Hero Network in honor of Brian McKenna. Friday's foursomes are already sold out, and remaining spots for Thursday are filling up fast. Find all the Dotem info now at 101ESPN.com. Brought to you by Michelob Ultra Superior Light Beer. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Cardinals cruise into Citizens Bank Park. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Now riding an 8-game winning streak, St. Louis continues its road trip tonight in Philadelphia. First pitch happens at 5:45. Matthew Liberatore toes the slab for Ollie Marmol, number 52. Most recently tamed Pittsburgh, tossing 7 innings of one-run ball. His season-long whip, 0.95. Elsewhere, Central leading Chicago welcomes Miami. Milwaukee visits Cleveland. Ice-wise, Carolina will host Washington while Vegas hits Edmonton. 2025's NFL opener pits reigning Super Bowl champ Philly against Dallas. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Come on, man. Are you in or are you out? It's in or out with BK and Ferrario.
Three 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out on BK and Ferrario. Alex, in or out, Matthew Liberatore is the Cardinals' opening day starter next year.
Ooh, out. I think it's Sonny Gray. I think it'll still be Sonny Gray. In a couple of years, I can see Matthew Liberatore being it. But I think for next year, I don't see Sonny Gray being on another team. I think that's going to be the guy that gets you until Quinn Matthews is established in baseball as a starting pitcher. So out.
I'm out as well for what it's worth. I do think that it'll end up being Sonny Gray, but there's a scenario where the Cardinals, this isn't real. It is totally a mirage. They end up falling back down to earth. Sonny Gray is dealt at the deadline, and then I think the most obvious internal candidate right now to be that starter would probably be Matthew Liberatore, so that's why I was curious.
Sonny Gray sticks around, so I'm out. However, Libby gives you the best darn number 2 in the division.
Alex?
Guys, in or out, the Central Division will represent the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup Final.
And I think it's going to be Dallas. I think Dallas is going to the Stanley Cup Final this year.
That is a decisive in for me. What was it, a 5-2 walloping last night in every conceivable category? We knew, I think, that Dallas would be able to outclass Winnipeg for numerous reasons, but all the way to the cup and taking it home.
Yeah, I said this before the playoffs. I thought Dallas was going to be in the Stanley Cup Final representing the West, and to this day, it still stands. I think the best path to getting to the Western Conference Final, if you would have been, or if you were the Blues, was to be in the Pacific Division bracket. Yeah. Vegas to me has been very vulnerable. Edmonton can't figure out a guy to stop a puck. I think either of those
Has
teams.
that happened before? Have they ever been in that situation?
It's amazing how a team just continues to make it to the deep into the playoffs and be like, you know what, we'll be fine with our goaltending. I thought the Central Division was going to be the most difficult path, and it's proving so.
Who do you think gets there out of the East?
Florida. Toronto can act all tough as they want. That they're fine where it's at, and the series is at 2-2. Everybody in Toronto right now is thinking, "Oh, geez, here we go again."
Do you agree the winner of that series wins goes to the Cup from the East?
Yeah, because I think Carolina is going to beat Washington, and I don't think Carolina is good enough to get past Florida or Toronto.
We're on the same page there. Bradford?
Hot off the press, you guys like some sports media news, right? Here's a little bit of a doozy just a couple of hours ago. So the NBA is returning to NBC next season. We have conflicting opinions from some in the audience about that. But the big get here, none other than MJ, Michael Jordan, will at the very least be a contributor to the NBA coverage on NBC next season. Guys, in or out, MJ as a contributor with real substance, somebody to whom you're paying attention.
Yeah, I was going to say, what MJ am I getting? Am I getting an MJ that's going to be bottled up, or am I getting the MJ from the documentary?
So, I'm going to say something that's going to probably make some portion of our fan base
LeBron is better than Michael. I know. We get it.
No. Have you guys ever seen Wayne Gretzky say much of anything interesting on the NHL?
You and I had the exact same thought.
I'm not saying this to be dismissive of Gretzky. Dude, having him on the desk is really cool. I want to hear what Gretzky, like when the Blues play on TNT, I hope Gretzky is on the desk to just find out what Gretzky's going to say.
I will always listen when Gretzky opens his mouth.
But I don't know that he's ever said anything that's like mind-bending. Where it's like, whoa, Gretzky, that's a great break. And it's just not his role on the show. Be Wayne Gretzky. Go up there and just do Gretzky stuff. It's the same thing for Michael. Like, Michael's going to be up there, and he's probably going to say almost nothing that you couldn't have also had just Joe Blow NBA fan go up there and say. But it's Michael Jordan saying it. So, yeah, you've got to hire him if you can.
Who's on the desk with him? Do we know?
I don't know who else is on the NBC desk this upcoming
Because this is my point. If you plucked Gretzky from TNT's broadcast and put him at ESPN's with PK Subban and Mark Messier, would still be brutal. Because
it would be way worse.
There is no personality at that desk. They think PK Subban is. He's not. The reason the TNT one works, and by the way, I don't know if people have watched Henrik Lundqvist, also says nothing.
Yeah.
But you know why it works? Because you've got Paul Bissonnette, who is hilarious. So if you're telling me that they're going to put Shaq and Charles Barkley with MJ, I'm all aboard.
There were rumblings about Carmelo Anthony. That was about a week ago. I do think I'm actually in on this one now. The ghost, the spirit, in a sense of Joe Montana comes to mind here as well, because I know it is a huge risk. I understand that. But I do think in many different ways, the NBA coverage and going to NBC, it's in desperate need of a shakeup as far as voices are concerned. I will give MJ the vote of confidence, at least to hear him in the early going, because I also like the fact that D. Wade is apparently going to be the primary color guy there on the broadcast. Let's go with it. Let's mix it up a little bit, see what he has.
Well, that's how you get a younger group of people to watch. Sure. You get Dwayne Wade and people are like, oh, I'm all aboard this.
And Eagle's good. Play-by-play. He's pretty good. We saw it in the Olympics.
They're going to do a good job with their coverage.
I'm not worried about the play-by-play and the color. I'm worried about the
pre and post. It's also really hard to do a good pre and post game show. It's what makes Turner's coverage of both the NHL and the NBA so elite. They actually make compelling television before and after games, and that's not an easy thing to do. I think the hosts of those shows also deserve a lot of credit.
Agreed.
Like you mentioned some of the guys that make that show watchable on Turner. I think Liam does a great job.
And Ernie.
On Turner. So that's another piece of that puzzle as well. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. From the 636, guys, in or out? 3 of the teams that made it to the playoffs in the Western Conference this year will miss it next year. 3 of the teams that made it this year from the West will end up missing it next year.
I think LA misses it next year.
Okay.
Because I think Calgary takes their spot.
I don't know who the other teams are.
I don't. Yeah, I'm out because I don't see any teams from Minnesota's going to be in it next year. I believe St. Louis is going to be in it next year, and then you're talking Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado. The crazy part is Utah believes they're going to be in it, and that's what it's going to come down to. I guess if you're going to take any teams out, it's going to be from the Pacific, but I'm not taking Vegas or LA out, so I'm out. I think only one misses it from the West.
I'm with you there, yeah.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. In or out, the player that the Blues bring in to be their second or third line center this offseason will be over the age of 30. I think the YouTube chat earlier today that brought up Brock Nelson. Now, I don't know how realistic it is that he would be interested in signing here.
But you did some background research and connected the dots.
His uncle played for the Blues for a season.
There you go.
So there is that connection.
Uncle John, what was it like in St. Louis?
That is a player that I would definitely have some interest in. But I think I'm going to say out. I think that the Blues will try to target somebody under the age of 30.
Yeah, I'm out. If they're going to get somebody like Brock Nelson, I'm with you. He might be our new Ross Colton, to where it's like, go get this guy. There's going to be teams that'll give him 4 or 5 years and teams that'll pay him more just because they want that center on their team. If it's not him, I'm not going after any of these other 30-plus-year-old players. It's going to be make a trade for a younger guy, 24, 25, 26, or sign Sam Bennett, who's 28.
Yeah, I'm out as well. I hesitate to say that the big offseason splash even comes during this particular cycle. You're still a year or 2 away, in my estimation, from really making that leap and inking the guy.
I like the way you're thinking, Bradford. McDavid signs with the Blues next offseason.
He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. Coming up next, we'll get to the BK and Ferrario Rewind, give you our final thoughts on the great weekend for the Cardinals. Also, what we have seen thus far in the playoffs in the NHL and how it could impact what the Blues need to do this offseason. We'll get to all that as we wrap things up here on BK and Ferrario.
The Stanley Cup playoffs are on ESPN tonight. Hurricanes and Capitals. Pregame at 5:30, puck drop at 6. Your home for the NHL. 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you for Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, the real deal for real deals since 1976. Let Dobbs' team of 600-plus tire technicians and auto service associates care for your family's vehicles. Whatever vehicle you drive, gas, hybrid, or EV, with locations all over town, they'll help you get to choose the tires that you need, already sold at the lowest prices in town, guaranteed. Quality name brand tires that will definitely suit your vehicle and for your family's budget. And make sure you check out Dobbs' money-saving May deals on new tires, including savings deals for up to $110 on top brands like Goodyear, General, Cooper, Michelin, and BF Goodrich tires over at GoToDobbs.com. The most locations around, including their newest stores in O'Fallon, Missouri, and in Osage Beach at the Lake of the Ozarks. Full service tire and auto service has never been more convenient, so let the tire and service pros over at Dobbs help you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision. It should not be based solely on advertising.
Back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, we're just a couple of weeks away from the return of the TMA Dotem Golf Tournament. It is refreshed by Mick Ultra. The Dotem returns on the 29th and the 30th at Oak Valley Golf Course and Resort. Friday's foursomes are already sold out, but spots do remain available for Thursday the 29th. Get your foursome together today for a full day on the course with TMA, including complimentary breakfast from Donut Drive-In, lunch from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, and if you saw what Jackson had to do for them the other day, his unbelievable advertisement, I know you're going to be wanting that. All of your Michelob Ultra, the 100 West Dental Closet, or closest to the pin competition, a long drive competition, courtesy of Pondoff's Anonymous Recovery Podcast, and an after party with food from Texas Roadhouse on Thursday and Super Smokers on Friday. A portion of the proceeds will benefit the St. Louis Hero Network in honor of Brian McKenna. You can find all of the information for that available for you at 101ESPN.com. We're closing out today's show here in just a few minutes, and if you've missed anything from it, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 ESPN app. That podcast is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
All right, Alex, let's finish things off by where we started with the St. Louis Cardinals. They have won 8 games in a row. They are blowing teams out right now. They have already won 10 games this season by at least 5 runs. To put that in context, they had one such win, 5+ runs differential in favor of the Cardinals. One such win at this point last season. Are you buying in? Are you starting to believe in what we're watching from the Cardinals?
Starting to. That's the key word for me. I'm starting to believe. I still would like to see a little bit more, and I think these 2 final road series before they come home can be a telling sign. If you can win one or both of these series against the Phillies and Royals, it's going to be hard for me to deny anything. They're getting a lot of these checklist items done. You're beating the bad teams, significantly beating them. Your pitching has held up. Your offense has been consistent from start to finish, and your young players are leading the way. So everything about this Cardinals team gets me excited for what the future can hold, especially with Chaim Bloom taking over. But for the now, it's hard for me to deny what they're putting together. I just want to see you do it against a competent opponent on the road. After that, there's no more denying.
I said earlier, one of my biggest questions about the Cardinals right now, in terms of is this going to be something that can sustain, is what is Matthew Liberatore long term? Can he continue to be the guy that he has been for the majority of the season? Last time he played against the Phillies, he was outstanding. 6 innings, 3 earned runs, struck out 7, allowed 1 walk, and 0 earned runs. The other big test that he had was against the Mets. 6 innings there, 2 earned runs allowed. So his 2 tests, he has passed with flying colors so far this season. Can he do it again? Can you continue to stack these quality starts on top of one another? He's only had 1 game so far this year where he did not go at least 6 innings, and it was the rain delay game where they said, don't go back out there. That's enough for you today. 3 innings, 42 pitches for Libby against the Cincinnati Reds. What does that look like for him today in this start against the Philadelphia Phillies? This is a huge test for them. They're on the road where some of their biggest issues have taken place, especially against quality opponents on the road. Next 6 games, Phillies, and then the Royals. You're going to see some good pitching. You're going to see a pretty damn good lineup out there in Philadelphia this week as well. I just want to see it, man. I want to see what this looks like. So I am buying in to a degree. I think this can be an 85-win team. I think that can potentially keep you in the conversation for the division all year long. I just want to see what Matthew Liberatore is, and if he becomes a legit number 2 starter for you, that could be a guy that helps make this a ceiling season.
Yeah.
All right, last thing that I wanted to get to. Earlier today, we did bring up the Sam Bennett thing again because he was once again great in the playoffs over the weekend for the Panthers. Alex, is that the guy you're targeting? After seeing him play once again, is that the guy, if you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes, you've circled on the free agent market?
I've circled him, but he's not my lone priority. Like, he's a guy that I'm going to keep an eye on to find out what he wants and how we make it work. But I think there are other names that can do what you're trying to get Sam Bennett to do, because Sam Bennett, at best, for the first couple of years of this contract, is going to be a second-line center for you. But by year 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you're talking about a guy who might arguably be a third-line center for you. And maybe that's great. Maybe Dvorsky's ready. But you know what I'd rather do? I'd rather get a guy that's not handcuffing my team for the next 7 years, and that's where I would target a Brock Nelson if he's out there, or I'm looking at the trade market. Before I, and it settles sounds bad, but before I fall on let's go with Sam Bennett, I think there are other options to exhaust.
Option 1 for me would be trade. Option 2 for me would probably be Brock Nelson because it's a shorter-term deal, or somebody like Brock Nelson. You can convince me of somebody else. Option C to me would be Sam Bennett, and I think all of those options are pretty darn good options. The Sam Bennett one would make me really nervous, what it looks like year 4, 5, 6, and potentially even 7 of that deal. But hey, man, if that is the thing that ends up making you better in 2025, I'm about trying to win for the here and now. We'll deal with 6 years from now when we get 6 years from now.
I'll take my team being aggressive.
That's right. He's Alex. That's Bradford. I'm BK. If you guys missed any of today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. You can also see it on YouTube at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Up-to-date info and breaking sports news first. All on the 101 ESPN